Hello and welcome back to Literocity. I'm Karen Kindemi, the literacy coach at High Point Elementary. Recently, we had the great pleasure to welcome the award-winning children's author and guided reading expert, Michele Dufresne, to High Point Elementary. Michele visited one of our third grade classrooms and students were thrilled to meet one of their favorite authors. I have a very special guest. This is Dr. Michele Dufresne, and she is the author of many books you've been reading in class, like the Bella and Rosie, the Snake book. I see you guys holding up the Snake book, Jack and Daisy. Look at your books. Oh, look. So, Ms. Hajian's class, this is Michele Dufresne.
Wow, thank you for writing to me. I am so pleased that you write my books. It's so good to meet you. Well, what is your favorite? Do you have any favorites? Or a favorite character? Is one of the tide pool. Oh, did you like that, to learn all about the tide pool?
Yeah.
So do you want to be a scientist? Do you like learning about the sea?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed that book. I liked writing it. I learned so much from writing it. Did you learn a lot from reading it?
I think one of the best things about being a writer of books for children that are being used in classrooms is getting to go in classrooms and seeing children use them.
How did you know that word says slither?
Can you show me how you chunked it?
So today I had a chance to go into a third grade. A lot of the students are struggling readers in there, but the enthusiasm for the books and for reading, and they seemed very excited to meet me because I had written the books, and so that just means so much to me. I get letters all the time from students that write to me telling me that their favorite book is or their favorite character, and I think that's just so exciting to feel that I'm really touching lives of children everywhere. I think the stories are simple, they're not complicated, so it's great that for them it's becoming meaningful. I think that especially in this classroom where these students are just learning how to read and seeing them so engaged and wanting to share with me, that really meant a lot to me today. What makes it meaningful is that I'm really making a difference to teachers and children in terms of learning how to read. And it's not just about the skill of learning how to read, it's that they're engaged in the stories, they're interested, they want to learn more from the books that they're reading about, or they want, I get letters, please write more Bella and Rosie stories, or please write more Gilbert stories. So that means so much to me, but really because I'm a teacher.
After our classroom visit, I had the opportunity to chat with Michele about how she got her start in education, writing children's books, and partnering with Jan Richardson in guided reading.
So I started out as a classroom teacher, but pretty quickly ended up as a reading and language arts coordinator at an early elementary school where I was supporting kindergarten, first and second grade teachers. Long ago, we were very interested in process writing, so we started writing workshop, and I got involved in Reading Recovery, which is an intervention for students that are struggling to learn how to read. It's a national program that has really excellent results. Teachers work one-on-one with students, and I actually had the opportunity to help bring Reading Recovery to Western Massachusetts, where I was the Reading and Language Arts coordinator at a small school, but we worked with a consortium of schools. And I trained with Irene Fountas and became a Reading Recovery teacher leader, which meant that I ended up kind of driving all over Western Massachusetts because our schools are very small there and rural, driving into the hill towns and basically coaching teachers who were learning how to be Reading Recovery teachers.
Okay, well you've had quite the background.
Yeah.
So tell me how that led into you being an author.
So what was interesting is, so these students that are in Reading Recovery are the children that are struggling the most with literacy. And every day in Reading Recovery, you need to read a new book. So one of the core things for this program is that children read a lot of books. Well, we didn't have a lot of books that they were successful at reading. So I would be out visiting a teacher somewhere, and I would be watching a child struggle with their new book, and I would think, oh, it's not quite right. So sometimes, as part of my little coaching, I would sit there and I would write a new story for that student. And I would say to the teacher, here's a story that I think would help this child. It has these words in it. It's got this language structure that will help them. You need to get some stickers or draw some stick people, and because it needs some illustrations, and make this into a book. Well, they had a lot of success with these little stories, but they started saying, Michele, this is a lot of work to make these stickers and stick people, and couldn't you make these into some books? So in one of the crazier moments of my life, I went home and I said to my husband, I want to make some of these stories that I've done that are working really well into a book. Couldn't we take some photographs? So we took these black and white photographs. We went to a local printer who printed them up, and we had 10,000 books because you really can't just print a few. Like first we tried them on a Xerox machine and they just looked terrible, so that we actually had to go to a printer. So then we had these books, and I went to a conference with a friend, and we handed them out with a little flyer that a friend made for me. Well, lo and behold, people started buying these books, and my husband was a physicist at the university, and he figured out how to do invoicing, and Pioneer Valley Books was kind of born from this little
idea out of need.
Yeah, really.
So a lot of your books have the same characters. So speak to how that's supportive for a reader.
Well, I didn't actually figure that out initially, but I had this little dog, Gabby, and she was this cute little dog, and she was in a lot of my stories. So all of a sudden I started getting children writing to me saying they wanted more Gabby stories, and teachers saying, oh, our favorite character is Gabby. And I was just like, it really wasn't intentional, but I just realized how seeing the same character over and over again, that they really bonded with this little dog that I had.
And wanted to read more.
And wanted to read more. And, you know, 20 years later, Gabby has gone on to greener pastures. And I had 2 new dogs, Bella and Rosie, that have become even more popular. And I probably get letters every day now across the country from children. Actually, they do not write to me, they write to Bella and Rosie.
So we had many children writing stories about Bella and Rosie last year.
So I think just like you hear children wanting to read Harry Potter, you know, books, children they become very much a part of these characters that they've read about. I mean, if you sit down and you talk to children, they can really talk to you about Bella likes this and Rosie likes that, and they like to do this. They've really, because they've read so many different books about them, they know about them, they feel like they're friends.
And it supports that whole sentence, story structure,
Exactly.
right? They get all those
Exactly.
parts and pieces. They know which one's the naughty one and which
Right.
one's not.
Right.
So you've moved into some nonfiction. The nonfiction series is amazing, Explore the World. So speak a little bit about that.
So I was actually pretty resistant about writing nonfiction books, and my husband, who has been so supportive of everything, right in the early beginning said, because he's a scientist, why aren't you writing nonfiction? And I was like, oh, nonfiction is not good for teaching kids to read. I was pretty convinced of it. There's different concepts, the language structure is different. I had tried using nonfiction with my reading recovery students as well as in guided reading that I was supporting teachers to do, and I was just completely against it. But you know, as time went by, there was more and more pressure from the State Department in Massachusetts, as well as, you know, national, the Common Core, that I decided to give it a little try. It takes a lot of time to write a nonfiction book that is also useful for teaching children to read. And sometimes all the information that you might want to have in a book cannot be there, because I'm really trying to create text. My main purpose is for creating text that children learn to read with. So I think very carefully about the structure. I think about what's the first word. So, for example, in a fiction book, often the characters talk. You know, I like the ball, said the girl, is much easier than the ball is red. So I have to think about that. And I also often recommend to teachers early on that they think about, you might be doing a guided reading lesson, you're at fiction at level G, but you might want to drop down a level for the nonfiction, even if the sight words are very similar, the concepts are very supported, the language structure is going to be different. But I do think about that a lot, and I'm glad that you like our series.
Absolutely.
Because that's been fun to do.
Good. So a couple of years ago, you met Dr. Jan Richardson, and I know the two of you have worked on a project called Literacy Footprints. It's very supportive for teachers.
Yeah.
So tell me a little about that.
I met her a few years ago, and I actually started using some of her next step lesson formatting as I was working with teachers and working actually with students myself, and I just found, it was very user-friendly with teachers and extremely good results. Jan and I started talking about some of the struggles that we see in implementing guided reading. Teachers struggling to pick just the right book for their group, and how much time it takes to plan a good, solid lesson. She spends a lot of time around the country demonstrating lessons and supporting teachers to plan their own lessons. We struggled a little bit with the idea that we don't know everybody's students, so we're planning a lesson for students we don't know, but we see it as a little, it's actually turns out that it's been a really good professional development. Teachers are really starting to understand how her lesson goes together by using our lessons. And even when I was just doing a lesson with your students here, I ended up making some adaptations based on it. I didn't follow the card exactly. It's meant to be a plan that goes well with the book to help you think about it. And I think by using that, we're seeing teachers are really becoming much more proficient.
So it's that footprint, not that blueprint.
That's exactly right. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think I appreciate you making those instructional decisions in the moment, because I think it actually shows teachers how that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So even though there's a lesson plan in front of them, they're still making that lesson fit the needs of the students.
Exactly. Exactly. I think every group is going to be different and bring different needs, but we are finding that if you've gone to the right book from the collection and we've made good choices about what comes next, you're going to find that it's going to go pretty well. And we're seeing, especially for newer teachers newer to guided reading, but even experienced teachers are coming out and saying, wow, this is so helpful.
So supportive. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's so great to be here.
All right. Thank you. When we return, Chastity Downing takes us to the Florida Holocaust Museum in St. Petersburg, and we see how some Pinellas County students are taking a step back in time, learning about one of the most significant events of the 20th century. Literocity returns in a moment.